The mysterious, the macabre, the out of this world. The following are real people. They have real stories, and they've had real encounters. Here tonight on Newsworthy, two words and two question marks.
He's alive!
Have you checked the children?
Get out!
Welcome to Encounters. People say that silence is golden, except for maybe when it's coming from a very large craft hovering right above you. Rob's here tonight to tell you all about his encounter.
We were fortunate enough to have a gentleman stop by and share time with us and his story. His name is Rob. He's got a great story to tell us. Rob, tell us about your trip.
Hey, this would have happened to me right around 1986.
2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a few years. Me and a couple other friends and my older brother actually decided to go fishing at a local pond. This would have happened in Central Ohio, South Central Ohio. We went to the pond many times, stayed overnight. It was just kind of a fun thing. We'd pitch a tent, have a fire, do some catfishing, and it was a common thing during the summertime. And it was the summertime when this happened. We were all catfishing. It got about, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning. Everybody started getting kind of tired. The catfish weren't biting, unfortunately. But we got to looking up at the stars, and there was some shooting stars occasionally. You know, we'd get one about every 30 or 40 minutes, and we all just, the fire was kind of dying down. Everybody was getting tired. About that time, believe it or not, we had an unusual object that we seen in the night sky coming from the south portion of the sky. And it looked, at the time, you could see lights, but you couldn't tell what the lights were, whether they were around it or whether they engulfed it. It was a really strange, like, kind of light around this object. So this object finally got up to where we were fishing around this pond, and it was hovering at about 100, maybe 150 feet. There was pretty low down, absolutely no sound. And at that time, years ago, out of Wright Pat, they used to fly the C-130s, you know, would come across the night and day. So you kind of knew the sound, you knew the lights. This thing didn't make a sound. Totally silent. And it looked like an upside down china dish. Like it, you know, you'd flip it and pretty round, yeah, bulky round. And it was flipped. And we, of course, at first, my reaction wasn't being scared. We were just kind of like, what in the hell is this? And so we realized at that point that it was actually stationary where we were, like right over the pond. There was no sound. There was no wind or no air being pushed down like from a helicopter or something like that. So then fear hit in. Yeah. So my brother and my friend that was with me and the other 2 friends, everybody kind of scattered like ants, and I couldn't take my eyes off this thing. So I kind of hid under my buddy's truck. It was pulled right down by our tent. And I got to looking at this thing. And when I looked at it, you could see the surface of this plate looking thing. And it reminds you of a CD disc. If you've ever seen like that shiny rainbowish kind of reflection, that's what it reminded you of. And then as it kind of like moved westwardly over the horizon, you could see in the back of it an unusual light. And I still have trouble explaining it to people because I don't have anything to compare it to, but it looked like a liquidy kind of strange colored combination lights that were in the back of this plate that looked liquid. but there was no sound as it moved away. So when it finally moved out, we all kind of, heart was racing. I couldn't hardly talk. My throat was all kind of just clammed up. And my brother's like, "Hey, we're going home. We're going home." And so naturally, the next day when we all start talking about it, all of our friends, I said, "Hey, we should, go contact the local paper and tell them about this. This is freaking awesome." And our friend that was with us, he was a little more socially awkward. I'm a social butterfly, I always have been, and so is my brother and most of our friends. But this guy, he was really upset that we were going to tell this story.
Kind of introverted type guy.
Introverted, very introverted, and very awkward. And he would stay mad when he'd get mad. He'd stay mad for a long time. So, and we liked him a lot. So we just didn't say anything to anybody for the longest time. And then I finally told my mom about what we had seen, and then I started speaking about it. And then my brother finally recollected his portion of what he thought he seen and what I seen and what our friends seen, except for the guy that didn't want to say anything. He still don't talk about it, but it was all exactly the same. We caught same story. Like my brother described the kind of liquidy, strange lights that was in the bottom rear portion of this plate. And that was my UFO experience. And I freely tell that story because, I don't really care if people believe me or not. It's irrelevant, but it happened. And that's definitely happened, man. So it was an interesting experience, scared the hell out of me, but it also intrigued me. And I love to read as much as I can and study as much as I can about this type of phenomena. Whether it's
so much of it.
right. Yeah. I can't say if it was alien or maybe it was something that, our government's working on. That's a possibility because
Especially considering you were close to some
absolutely,
of the
absolutely.
strangest
It-
we know for sure.
Right.
Done it right.
And we were an hour and a half outside, maybe an hour and 45 minutes from Wright Pat. And in an airplane or a flying object of any kind, that's just a heartbeat away.
Had to make, I would think, you guys feel better when you get together and compare your story.
Yes.
And all your buddies remember.
Oh, yeah.
Saw the same thing you
They
did.
they remember it the same way, and so there wasn't really. There might have been some discrepancies in which direction it came from, because I mean you were talking about 1986, 87. Yeah, that's a long time ago. A long time. And
Cell phones.
oh no, cell phones weren't a thing, and of course some of the gentleman that owned the pond, he was a really good friend of mine and had stayed a friend for years and years, and he recently died a few years back. But I told him about the story, and he just chuckled and laughed at me. He thought that was the greatest story he'd ever heard. No, he never experienced anything like that. But like it is what it is. So that's my story, man.
One thing I like to ask you,
Sure.
when you tell this story over a period of time, I'm sure you've told it many
Oh
times.
gosh, yes, yeah.
I'm sure there are things that people you tell it to misunderstand, take the wrong way.
Sure,
What
sure.
would you say to those people? Make sure to our listeners, so that doesn't happen. What would
Sure.
you say to them?
I would say, this experience happened to me. I reflect that story and tell that story the way that I remember it, the best of my knowledge.
You can do it.
And I don't embellish the story in any way, shape, or form. I just tell it like I remember it the best. And anytime something like that happens, that's generally the best advice I can give somebody is just tell it like you see it. Don't think too much into it, and don't try to come up with your own,
I totally agree.
because you just don't know.
Yesterday and today, we've heard so many stories. I've been truly happy with the fact that most of them are like you. They do just that. They
Yeah.
don't embellish. They don't exaggerate. They're like, dude, I don't even know what it was. Here's what I saw. Here's
Right.
what I experienced.
Right.
That's believable.
Oh,
Don't tell
absolutely.
me it's a 6'9" 427
Yeah.
pound.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't believe that.
Yeah, right.
No, none of us in that type of environment is going to remember every minute
Right.
detail.
And I've thought about that over the years. I'm sure there was details in that experience that I had that probably I could have, and I just was so afraid. I don't remember. I mean,
Well, who would be? Well, I better.
yeah,
If you're a journalist or someone
Right.
painted, do that. But
Yeah.
anyway, For most of us, we're like, what the hell am I looking at?
That's right. And again, I could just recollect what I remember, but I'm sure there was facets to that experience and levels to that experience. If if I could go back in time, I'm sure I could have remembered something more important that might. But at the time, I was so scared. You don't prepare that. I mean, we
How
were
can
looking.
you?
We were waiting for catfish to bite and watching shooting stars.
How old are
Nobody.
you, by the way, did you
Oh
say?
my goodness. Let's see. So in '86, I was a young teenager at the time. So,
As a
right.
59-year-old man, I'm not prepared to
Right.
deal with that.
Yep.
Much less
Never
as a
thought.
young teenager.
And we grew up really poor, so we didn't have cable TV like most had. We had the old channel 6, 10, and 4, and so that kind of stuff, that kind of embellishment on UFO stuff and ufology and all that, we did. I wasn't exposed to that, so
Would
that
you known how to do it if you
no,
wanted to?
hell no. We just, I was like, oh my God, what in the world was that? And it affected each one of us a little differently. Again, my friend, I don't want to mention his name, but my friend, he was very introverted, very socially awkward. He does not talk about it. No, he will not speak of it and doesn't want to talk about it.
That's his right.
So yeah, absolutely.
Everyone has their own experiences, and we have our own.
Sure.
We have a right to our own way of dealing with it. That's
Yep.
power to him. I wish he wasn't so
Yeah.
introverted, felt
Right.
comfortable, but it's his choice.
Yep. We've tried many times to recollect that story and just to hear his side of it again, say, hey man, did you feel what we felt? And he does not want to speak about it. And he will quickly change the subject with me. He won't talk about fishing.
There you go. Rob, we absolutely appreciate you
Hey,
telling
my
your
pleasure.
story.
My
It's
pleasure.
a great story, and thanks again.
Absolutely, brother.
Awesome.
All right, man.
And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.